President Biden and his agenda are caught in the middle of a tug of war between Democrats, moderate ones on one side and progressives on the other. Moderates demand that the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill be taken to a vote before the passage of a larger $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. Progressives demand to pass both at the same time. Despite Democratic control of Congress, both bills and Biden's agenda are on the verge of collapse. Biden's agenda has a seemingly insurmountable mountain to climb with a myriad of hurdles standing in the way. With the looming threat of a government shutdown, a battle with Republicans over raising the debt ceiling, half of the 96-member Congressional Progressive Caucus ready to vote against the infrastructure bill if it is presented alone, and a self-imposed September 27th deadline for the passage of the infrastructure bill. When he was vice president, Biden was known as a chief deal maker for the Obama administration. But it remains to be seen if he will be able to cut a deal to satisfy the warring factions in his own party. Joining the discussion now is Washington correspondent for the Daily Beast, Eleanor Clift, and Democratic strategist, Bre Maxwell. So, Eleanor, what do you make about the position that Democrats find themselves in? It looks like they could be on the brink of not giving Biden a win of any sort.
I just can't believe that the Democrats would perform collective suicide with each side demanding that they get everything they want, and if they don't get it, they don't want anything. There's got to be a compromise here. I think we're going to have a number of life and death moments between now and even Monday and beyond. And, I just have to have faith in Joe Biden, who was in the Senate for 36 years, in the White House with Obama for 8 years. And he knows what he's doing, and he's got personal relationships. And again, if the Democrats do this to themselves, they will damage their prospects for holding the Congress next year. But more importantly than the political prospects, these are needed investments. The climate has been neglected, and we're now at an existential point, and we've got unequal income in this country to the point where that is reaching dangerous levels. So these are needed investments, and let's forget about the Republicans. This is up to the Democrats now, and they got to find a sweet spot where they can come up with the votes. And the progressives are going to understand that have to understand that other districts in the country are not surefire safe for Democrats, and some of these moderates are kind of posing as endangered when they can take this vote. It's not going to cost them, and if the Democrats lose the House next year, which history suggests they will go down having accomplished something. Otherwise, this is like a zero presidency, and the Democrats are doing it to themselves. So I don't think they're that crazy. So I remain hopeful that this is going to happen, and this is going to be a significant investment in people and in our economy that will be on the level of what FDR did and LBJ did, and we'll be talking about Joseph Robinette Biden with his initials, and he'll join LBJ and FDR.
Bre, what do you think about the AOCs of the world? Do you think that this is a strategy on their part, that they will eventually come around to a deal in the end? Or do you take her and the other progressives at their word, which is this is it? This is the red line. They are not going to budge.
Charles, honestly, I think it's going to be both. I think they are going to fight until the extreme last minute, but I think people like AOC will eventually come around. I've seen AOC come around in the past, and I don't think this time will be any different, because it's not just about the progressive wing of the party who needs these bills passed. It's about all American citizens at this point. I understand what Senator Sanders is trying to say. He wants to make sure that we are fighting for climate change within this country, and that we are also fighting for working class Americans. And we can get all that done, but we just have to figure out how to come to the table and have an agreement. But I do believe the progressive wing and the AOCs of the party will come around, but it will be at the extreme last minute.
Eleanor, do you understand the frustration that many of the progressives who feel like they got out, they energized the base, they were the ones who helped to swing the election, and it is the moderates who are driving the agenda. It is the moderates who seem to be dictating what can and what cannot fly legislatively. Do you understand that frustration, and just say you still have to just suck it up? Or do you understand their position of saying they don't want to suck it up?
No, I understand their frustration, and they are carrying out the Biden agenda. Biden put all this on the table. So, they're getting in line and they're saluting, and they should be rewarded for what they're doing. But in a representative democracy, you have to get the votes. And the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, is a terrific head counter. She knows exactly what every member needs and doesn't need. And she also knows, and maybe the progressives will dispute this, but that it was those swing seats that the Democrats took back that gave the Democrats their majority. And they're the nervous Nellies, sometimes with justification, and sometimes, as the progressives point out, without justification. They're overly nervous. But I think if the progressives say it's all or nothing, and we walk away from the last several months and Biden's campaign pledges and the needs of the country and take nothing. I mean, if they don't get 3.5 trillion in the reconciliation bill, what if they get 2 trillion? It's still a lot of stuff over 10 years. And I agree with Bre. I think in the end, AOC is a rational player as well. And if they leave all of this on the table, or half of it that they could have gotten, I don't think they're going to be rewarded, by their constituents. I really don't. I think it will be seen as an ideological power play. And I admire them to fight to the last minute, and the other side's going to do that. But they're all on the same team. This is the Democrats. And if they can't pull this off, and the Republicans are on the sidelines, applauding, this is what the Republicans want, that the Democrats are fighting among themselves and can't in the end deliver. So I'm rooting for this to turn out the right way.
Right. Bre, how disastrous would it be if they did not get some sort of bill out of this deal? Because particularly in the midterms, forget about the next presidency. In the midterms, it's already an uphill battle to hold on to the House and Senate. If they get nothing, and at the same time, you will have had a record surge of immigrants at the border, which Republicans will pounce on. You will, if things continue the way they're going now, you may end up having more COVID deaths under Biden than under President Trump if they continue in the same pace. So, the talking points will start to stack up, in addition to being able to say, and they didn't give you what they said that they would give you. How big of a disaster would that be for Democrats?
It will be a disaster across the board, because what this will do, it will become another 2014 Tea Party revolution, where they were able to come in and take over. And that's not something that we need in this country at this point. And you know what it also does? It also hurts our states. It hurts our governorships. So it really ruins our 2022 midterms, because it makes it harder for some of our Democrats who are trying to flip some of these seats that we have across the country, and that we need to win back, and that we need to have to make sure that we can keep the House. But not only does it mess up the House and the Senate, it also messes up our governorships across the country, because as we all know, most of our states that have Republican governors, our COVID numbers are astronomically high. That can be attributed to South Carolina. Look, Henry McMaster, our governor, He's not fighting to make sure that our students are wearing masks in the schools. We as a state never really shut down, but our numbers are astronomically high. Our people are dying at high rates every single day. So what this does is, if progressives do not get what they want, and then we basically hand the Republicans 2022, that just means we have more COVID deaths, more issues with COVID across the country, and especially with new variants coming out. We have to make sure that we are fighting for all American citizens at this point, and to make sure that we keep people and we bring people into our legislators to make sure that we can combat COVID, and we can make sure that we are fighting for climate change. That's why we need this infrastructure bill. So we have to figure out how we can all come on the same page to make sure that we can get these bills passed, and to make sure that we cannot have another 2014 Tea Party revolution.
Ms. Clift and Ms. Maxwell, thank you both for joining me.